Hello, this is Just Vine. Today we are going over JuriBot. So, a while ago we had released JuriBot and had gone over JuriBot a little bit, but we had not released JuriBot herself. So, even though we've already gone over her before, we'll sort of go over her inputs and stuff specifically, and her point system, which I don't believe was explained yet, and yeah. So, JuriBot, as you may know if you had watched the JuriBot video, is a bot designed to help us with our meaties. So the reason why we have multiple bots is because for meaties in particular, there's different stages of mastery and situations you need to be able to train. So JuriBot has a few less strong wake up options compared to Juri. Obviously she's lacking the DP. Some of the hitboxes are a little nicer on Juri's jabs and such, but basically it's the EXDP that really seals the deal, and Juri, the way her footsies work is a little different as well. For Juri, when you fight her online, you're more so looking for places where you want to punish her. So while Laura sort of helps you get acquainted with your meaties, help you figure out if they work, JuriBot is more so helping you figure out what things you'll need under pressure, what things will help you in a more regular flow of an opponent, because the JuriBot doesn't technically move in the same way a lot of opponents do, and JuriBot is a little closer. So I'll go over her inputs here real quick. The inputs themselves are not that complicated, but this is mostly because a lot of Juri's buttons themselves tend to let you do some fairly important things without too much trouble. Some characters need a little more work than others in that regard, but Juri, this is one of Juri's strong suits. So, Action 1, we have the inputs for her to be able to do pinwheel in here at the very end. We have that edge shifted with the half circle forward. We have some variations in the kicks, so that way she can vary her recovery from a back roll or just a normal delayed recovery, which is sort of important when you're checking meaties, because, and specifically meaties under pressure. If you're looking for ways to meaty pressure an opponent and you go for the meaty that is designed for the delayed rise but not the back rise, well then you're kind of screwed. So a lot of Juri's inputs you'll see have double kicks or double punches, but also a lot more stuff that isn't doubled up. compared to some other bots. So you can practice a lot of that sort of stuff on the dummy recording. You can do setup for guard recovery actions and sort of practice it, and wake up recovery actions and sort of practice that sort of stuff. But we needed to be able to simulate that ability in JuriBot, so that's the main reason why we vary that so much. So, as you also may have noticed on the very first part there, this input has a V skill at the very beginning. So, if I turn that back off, and then turn it back on, you'll see that the medium punch and medium kick there are pressed but never appear again. That's because she's holding that down, and that's mainly to help her have a charged V skill without it going off all the time. So part of the scariness of Juri can be when you're not expecting that fully charged V skill. So the final thing that I'll note here that'll come up in this input, I think, is you'll notice there's a lot more down back sort of stuff in this spot. So for input 2, we got her ability to confirm into pinwheel off of a jab. We got EX pinwheel, and we have a hidden V trigger that's also a sweep. And Juri's sweep is pretty alright, and it can help punish certain meaties if you mess up and they're too long. So this helps her get some pretty healthy pressure. We got the confirm into Ryo Dansatsu hidden in the crouching medium punch there. So this input is mostly to make your life on her wake up a living hell, as much as we can. So the down back in this bot, as I was trying to get to earlier, is important because you don't want a bot on wake up to not block. So you'll notice a lot, especially on action 3, that you can just keep going at her and she'll keep holding block a lot more than basically every single other bot we have. There's a few that get pretty close, but while it's okay to fudge around with like accidentally having like a down instead of a down back and stuff like that, for this bot, don't stress yourself out too hard, but it'll probably be in your best interest to make sure you get those inputs correct as possible. Because you don't want her to not block, because it makes it harder to understand if your meaties were okay to do or not. So we got another crouching medium punch into Ryo Dansatsu and a throw here. This is mainly to make her have a throw, obviously, and throw tech on wake up, but this is more so her defensive input. Her crouching medium punch hits a really far way away and can whiff punish things a little better than some of her jabs while still being safe. So this input is probably the easiest one in the bot to do. We have just a jump and then an air throw, and then it's ended really quickly. So it overlaps pretty easily and won't show up that frequently even if it plays. The jump, I mean. But we also, as previously mentioned, try to hide a lot more back throws and such than we normally do. Or back rolls, sorry. So that is why that heavy kick is there. But it also has the advantage of if you interrupt her a bit and she stays on the ground, she'll just do her heavy kick. And that's one of Juri's buttons that she likes to use a lot in neutral. And so finally, we have this one recorded a little bit incorrectly, but she should be able to get both her light kick and her heavy kick, Fuharin, that's her fireball kick, out. She does not, on the current recording, get the light kick one as frequently, but you want to make sure you have that one down, because if she doesn't have her light fireball, it makes her neutral game a little less strong, and it also makes that heavy Fuharin release, which is the double kick version that you see there. She can cancel into that and make it safe if she has the light fireball. So having those two around means that you have to deal with that in neutral a bit more. You have to deal with the light fireball a bit more, but more importantly, her Fuharin charge kick is -2. That's the thing that charges the fireball kick. So that's another nice thing to mix up her neutral a bit. This bot isn't designed to be a bot that teaches you neutral, obviously, but you still want a bot you are testing for your meaty stuff to have a decent ground game in order to figure out your stress situations. So you can also see how there is a few just normal light kicks and light punches. Some of them are crouching, some of them are not. That's mostly there to give her wake up a little more variation from this move. So, and there's no double inputs in 5. So 5 is what helps JuriBot wake up on a delayed rise, more or less. So eventually, what the bot will hopefully help you learn is how to deal with her in situations like this, where you can actually get a knockdown somehow, or at least deal with it so that you can get a knockdown after all of her nice safe stuff happens. And then you can go into your meaty. So this is a meaty that I'm still working on, and I will turn on the bot on full now while I explain the current goal system. It's not totally complete yet, but currently what we have is punishing Juri in mid Ryodan Satsu as a point. That is to help keep you aware of that move in particular, because if it's done at the wrong range, it's unsafe, but if it's done at the right range, it's basically safe. But it's very punishable in the air while it's still going at you. So it's one of her get-in tools in terms of punishing people in neutral. So if you throw a fireball, then you have to now deal with a bot that actually can punish your fireball relatively better than some other ones. Again, not what it's completely designed for, but so, as you can see, she can kill you pretty quickly, even if you get your meaty right. Even if you get your punish on point, she can punish you pretty badly. This is why, unlike JuriBot, there's not really a point system for JuriBot gaining a point. Her HP penalty for you not handling the wake up in the correct way is more than enough, and will probably lead to many a frustrated moments and learning experiences in the first place, without adding the added pressure of her getting a point. So instead, another difference in the point system is, let's see here. No, never mind. We only have 3 points worked out, so I'm sifting through those real quick. There we are. Right, so we also have on obviously getting a meaty after a jump in move punish, similar to Laura. And I think that's all the ones in my notes, so there'll be the full point system on Sunday, which you can see on 2-mk.org/bots. So for now, we're just gonna focus on being aware of the Ryodan Satsu, because I don't have much Bison versus Juri practice. And I'm really still working on this meaty, so. Another thing that I find JuriBot useful for is that once you get your meaty off, once it like lands and you get all of your nice damage, then Juri is put into a situation. Now, this may not always be a knockdown situation. Some people prefer meaties that don't, and they can be fairly useful to reset the situation in your favor, especially against characters who do have good wake-up options. That way you're not in a constant guessing game for those. So what I like doing is that once well, I'll explain it when I actually manage to get my meaty out here. Hold on. Right, so that situation right there. So, obviously dash may not have been the best situation in that moment, but what I feel is JuriBot's strength is there's a lot of those moments that you can experiment with that you may not always get to practice against a human who tends to be very predictable or monotonous in their wake-up, or overly random. Honestly. It really depends on the person online, but just being able to lab out what different situations I'll be put in and what is the better general response at a certain spacing after a meaty is sort of the biggest thing that you can learn from her. And obviously figuring out what meaties to use as a punish kind of extends to that. Because for some moves, you may not get to punish optimally with a move that gets you a nice meaty. And you sort of have to learn why that is in order to actually get good at your meaties. Beyond the level of just being able to go, okay, I can do my crouching medium kick into medium scissors into dash into 5 heavy kick. That's all great, but the real challenge comes when, okay, so I landed my 5 heavy kick and she blocked, and now she's slightly at advantage. What is the best thing for me to do there? How can I regain the situation after having done my meaty? How can I protect my points, my precious health points, my precious CA gauge, so I can make her day not as good? How can I get in a place where I can trick her into thinking I'm going to do one thing because I did this one response to the situation a bunch of times, and I know another option that can happen afterwards. And suddenly pull out a whole new response that she was not prepared for, and now I'm at advantage again. I personally like meaties that let me get into the knockdown situation again. I come from Armika, so my mindset is very much based in keeping up that pressure as much as I can, because honestly it puts the opponent on tilt fairly successfully in a lot of cases. See, that's the hardest part about this meaty. You can often corpse hop and end up in a completely different direction and do the wrong dash if you're not paying attention, or ready for it anyway. I have no idea if that's a real meaty or not, but it'd be funny if it was. Yeah, man. That's the hardest part about this. Well, that's why I'm practicing. Ah, and then I hesitated. Ah, right. It was Pinwheel that was the other punish to replace the Laura point there. Right. So, Pinwheel, punish, Ryodon Satsu, preemption or punish. I think we're saying or punish? I don't know. That'll be on the, that'll be worked out on the bot page. But something like that. That was poor hit confirming on my part. I have no idea how many wake-up frames that has when it hits someone in the air. But one of the non-obvious, or maybe obvious, I don't know, things that this forces you to learn, of course, is to learn meaties that you can bait DPs from. For example, this one has the failsafe of if I don't want to scissor kick, if I think they're going to quick rise and do their DP, because I've been bullying them with my meaty pressure so much, then I might just occasionally just not go for the meaty, but do the startup as if I was going to. Or maybe I make a mistake. And then I'm not really close enough for the DP to usually hit. Yeah, it's a little infrequent, but I feel like it's frequent enough. Especially if you, like, give her a little bit more breathing room than I have been, and try to focus on her neutral a little bit more, she tends to do it about the right amount. Can't remember if that was a real meaty or not. But yeah, JuriBot, especially if you want to get like deep into actually figuring out your different responses to situations after your meaty, you're gonna have to dive into some pretty heavy frame data. But you don't need to go too deep in if you got like an Oki calculator or something like that. Though I don't really use those myself. I kind of rely on other people helping me out figure out what meaties suit my input delays and stuff. Like, I have trouble dashing sometimes, and so I have a few extra frames in meaties that involve dashing. And this can make perfect frame meaties not work. It can make some meaties that shouldn't be possible work. If you are just going by a pure input-based method. But that's true. Some people do not have as nice of buttons for this sort of thing as Bison does. Because a lot of that responses that Bison has to situations are basically the same button, so you don't really have to think as hard as you do with some other characters. Mika is a similar way, and this is actually part of the reason why I play both of them. Mika does not have to think very hard about her meaties compared to, I don't know, I think Karin has to think harder. Maybe Cammy for some things, I don't know. There's lots of characters that don't have as nice of meaties as Bison and Mika do. But it's more so, as Brillian was pointing out, that the buttons they use for pressure are similar to the buttons they use for meaties. So, like, Bison's scissor kick here is a perfect example of that. I use that all the time to bully people in neutral. Oh yeah, Ed's is a pain in the ass. That's why I ended up giving up on him a little bit, actually. But that's also mostly because I, in the end, prefer Juri for certain things. Oof. That spin deal though. And by the end of this bot, once you have mastered JuriBot, you'll know where to respect her DP a little more. Because I often see that go underutilized online, especially at the lower tiers. You know what? Sure, let's try that. Oh boy. Oof. Need to learn me some Psycho Burst Meaties. But it looks like we have the the fake out for her V-skill charge as well. So you can't be too reliant on that charge going for the full amount. Oops. And honestly, I probably would not count throw loot meaties in here. That would probably rob yourself of some well-deserved learning. I mean, knowing your throw meaties is fairly important, but That's true. Yeah, sure. Let's do that. I'm getting a bit of psycho power fatigue here. I don't know, I like switching up characters' costumes a lot, because you never know what costumes are going to be available if you're like in a tournament setting or at someone else's house or whatever. See, this is why we worked so hard on balancing the delay, quick, and back roll rises the way we did. Because, I mean, that in itself sort of stops throw meaties, at least for command grabs. Alright, I'm not Bison. I think they do read Ryodansatsu as off the ground at least for throws or something? I don't know. But I don't seem to be able to command grab it. At least with Mika's. Might just be bad timing on my part too, though. Oops, wrong one. I don't really see her jumping out of things, really. But again, the way we made that was so it wouldn't be that frequent. But she definitely does Pinwheel in Ryodansatsu, and honestly just Delayed Rise really cuts some of that stuff out. But as you can see, Mika, like Bison earlier, has some tricky ways about going things such that she doesn't have to think too hard. But, yeah, I'm pretty sure either I'm just really horrible at punching this Meaty, or Ryo Dantatsu is really able to just evade throw Meaties, which is helpful for this. So, cool. I mean, not cool if it's my bad, but we'll probably have some of that sort of stuff on the in-depth once we get to it eventually. Oops. That light pinwheel really does make you have to think a little bit about your approach. There's that light jab wake up. That's good. Yeah, okay. So there you go. EX pinwheel, light pinwheel, jab, delayed rise, back roll. All sorts of fun ways to stop those pesky throw wake-ups. Anyway, I'll get to actually trying to play this bot. On Mika, I mean. I was kind of autopiloting a little bit there to get some stuff out. There's some jumping in there. Stuff. for that. Right. Lillian, were you talking about the thing I was saying earlier in the stream about how Juri helps you how Juri helps you figure out what to do after your meeting sort of thing? Yeah, Mika really can do a whole bunch of silly stuff like that. But that's why I like her. But overall, you can probably see by now how, even though she's a fairly basic bot to put in for the most part, in terms of her inputs anyway, she does a lot of stuff that if you behave correctly in the way it's intended, i.e. trying to get Meaties off of punishes. She can exhibit a lot of really, well, frustrating stuff that looks like stuff you'd face online. And her wake-up options are a bit harder than Laura's, so I hope you can also see why this would be the next stage of Meaties for learning Meaties against the bot. But she can be pretty difficult. Because in the end, Meaties are inherently a risky thing to do, especially against someone with even halfway decent wake-up options. But if you're not feeling brave enough, that's what JuriBot's is for. She'll fix that right up. But in itself, this sort of training sort of helps you learn to be a little more cautious and respectful of the opponent. Or, well, maybe not respectful is the right word for some people, but you know, keeping in mind the capacity of one's opponent, or figuring out ways to not have to deal with that. But, you know, to each their own. This is also one of those bots that you can just put in a ton of time in. Probably even more so than some of the other bots, because there's just... If you think about it, there's, depending on the character, a bunch of meaties that you can do. to earn points from. And then there's the whole, well, what do I do after that meaty? What do I do after that meaty? What do I do after this one when she's at this range? All that sort of stuff, but not just that, she's pretty hard to earn points on at the harder levels. Because it really ultimately forces you to take on that sort of challenge when it comes to... Yeah, that too. I mean, I've been practicing some of my meaties for about, I don't know, 3 months now? And I still don't get them perfect all the time. But a lot of it is because sometimes your muscle memory just doesn't remember that, oh, this is a situation I want to use this meaty in. So there's lots of levels to be learned for that sort of thing. But, so you have the muscle memory on top of all of these different little situations that come up from meaties themselves, and then you just have the normal matchup stuff that a lot of bots can help you with, like in neutral and in situations where you're not necessarily pressuring her all the time. She's definitely high up there in the utility department. And honestly, her actions are a lot simpler too, compared to some other bots, but without really sacrificing the utility of them. So you get slightly more stable scenarios to work on and focus compared to some of the other bots. that was interesting. Anyway, I don't want to stretch out a review bot too long. Well, it's sort of a review, but she will be released on Sunday as usual. Where you can get the full point system and a little more in-depth guide on how to enter her at 2-nk.org/bots. And yeah, I hope you all enjoy SoCal Regionals this weekend. Looks like it'll be fun as usual. So, this is Just Fine with 2-nk.org, and I will see you next week.